Woo! Hey everybody, Jim Sammons here, and welcome to the Kayak Fishing Show live. As always, brought to you by Ballast Point Brewing Company. I'm not having one today. I got a bunch of stuff to do, and I don't have time to have a beer today because one beer will lead to another beer, and then I won't get the stuff done I need to get done. Hope everybody's doing good. That sunrise behind me is right in front of Rancho Leonero, down in the East Cape, southern Baja, which is where this episode's going to be. Has anybody taken advantage of our ACR Artex deal yet? Give us a thumbs up. Somebody take advantage of this. I mean, it is a great deal. 10% off and free shipping in the U.S., if you do go offshore, if you do go remote, if you go hiking remote, if you go motorcycling, any of that stuff, the PLBs are a great safety tool. So again, not a sponsor of the show. I'm just trying to pass along a deal. Got a couple people checking in already. Liam watching over on Kayak Fishing Tales. For anybody who is new to this, we air these older episodes on our Facebook page, as well as Kayak Fishing Tales, our YouTube channel, every Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesdays being the Jackson Kayak years, and Thursdays being the Ocean Kayak years, a little bit older stuff. Today we're actually beginning season 5. We actually, because my producer didn't get them downloaded in the right order, we started airing with season 6, but season 5 was actually the first year that we started with Jackson Kayak. So this will be the first episode of season 5, our first airing or our first shooting with Jackson Kayak. So pretty, it's been a fun ride. I mean, I got to admit it's working with Jackson after being with Ocean Kayak for so many years. Working with Jackson, has been so much fun. Great group of people, as there was at Ocean Kayak, and I've developed a lot of great friendships and relationships over the years with all these people. This will be, like I said, this will be when I first started with them. It was before the Kraken. I believe in this episode we're using Cuda 14s, which was a great boat, but the Kraken was much better for this type of fishing. Honestly, just a much better paddling boat. So, but Jackson Kayak, they kind of cover the gambit of all the different styles of boats out there. Just wish they still made my Kraken. Thomas, how you doing? Thanks for joining us. Gene, how are you? I appreciate you joining us here. Andrew, how are you? Dave Fowler, always joining us. I appreciate it. And Sean Russell, again, always joining us. I really appreciate that. So yeah, I used to, for many years, I guided trips down in southern Baja. And this is the East Cape region. Like I said, it's just up from Cabo San Lucas on the Sea of Cortez side of the Baja Peninsula. Probably one of the most affordable, awesome trips you could take, particularly if you're out of California, because getting to the East Cape, flying into Cabo, is less than a 2-hour flight out of San Diego. So very accessible from anywhere on the West Coast. And then you would land in Cabo and have about a 45-minute drive up to the resort. Actually, a little bit farther to Rancho Leonero. I originally started guiding at Hotel Punta Colorada, which was my favorite. Absolutely loved it. A little bit better location fishing-wise. It was farther south and much closer to Punta Arena, which was the Lighthouse Point, which was where we just crushed so many big rooster fish. But also, I mean, you could catch tuna and Dorado from shore because it just dropped off right in front of the lighthouse. So just a phenomenal place to fish. Unfortunately, Punta Colorado, which is owned by Van Wormer Resorts, closed down. They had Punta Colorado, Playa del Sol, and my mind's gone blank on the big one. But the big one was definitely more resorty, not really my style. They were farther north up at Los Barriles. And they had some issues at Punta Colorado. Punta Colorado was the first one. It was the oldest one, but they actually ran into a water rights issue at the hotel. And along with the downturn in the economy and all that, and this was years ago, they closed down. And so I stopped guiding there and moved up to Rancho Leonero, which is, again, just a really cool place, not resorty, very small, intimate. I mean, a place you're very comfortable bringing your family. I mean, people would ask me if it was safe going down there. I literally would bring, thousands of dollars in fishing gear, and I would leave it outside my room every night. I'd rinse it off and just lean it on the wall outside my room. Never had a worry. So, excuse me, just a great place. Both Punta Colorado, Rancho Leonero, that whole southern Baja, I absolutely love. And I know a lot of people, we've done our trips to Panama, and I absolutely love Panama. I mean, love Panama for the variety of fish and the quantity and everything. But for an affordable, easy access place where you could still get big fish, the East Cape is really hard to beat. Like I said, this is us paddling out one morning right in front of the hotel. You could catch roosterfish right there, right off the beach there. A quarter mile off the beach from Punta Colorado, but I mean, the same general location. It's about 10 miles farther south. I caught my biggest Dorado. I got a 62-pound Dorado a quarter mile off the beach. I mean, absolutely amazing. And deep water, I got a 32-pound Cubera snapper right down in this area. Actually, that was right here in front of Rancho Leonero. And we would catch tuna, marlin, sailfish a mile from the beach. So absolutely phenomenal. And like I said, easy access and much cheaper overall. A trip to Southern Baja is very, very affordable, particularly if you start comparing it to like trips to Alaska and that sort of thing. So absolutely love Baja. I wish I could still get down there more. It's been kind of shut down because of COVID, but the fishing has opened up down there, and it's absolutely a great place. So highly recommend Van Wormer Resorts. Highly recommend Rancho Leonero, which is where this episode was shot. Donald, howdy, Jim. May I ask a dart spin question? Donald, you can ask any question you like. I'm here to answer questions, whether it's on the topic of the episode. My glasses are always looking crooked. See, I'm looking at myself here. Hey, Hamilton, thanks for joining us. Gene, you've never been on a Kraken, but I do have a CUDA 14. The difference between the Kraken and the CUDA 14 and the CUDA 12 was, actually, it was a little bit more stable, a lot faster. The Kraken being much faster. And the other thing, I mean, I used to guide out of these boats. I'd have clients right next to me in a CUDA 14. And because of the design of the scuppers and the size of the scuppers on the CUDAs, they were so loud. I mean, I'd have people sitting next to me and you just hear this boat going bloop, 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 bloop. You'd hear the water coming up through the scuppers, particularly if somebody was in it that was lighter. If they weren't a heavy person, they weren't weighing down that boat and get the scuppers completely down in the water. That also slows the boat down, which, again, the Kraken just had much better glide. So I definitely preferred it. I could actually stand in the Kraken, and it wasn't really made for standing, but I could stand in the Kraken much better than I could at the CUDA. And there's my wife, Palma State Cortez. I don't know why my mind went blank on that. So the other Van Wormer resort, their big one, their really resort one with the swim up bar and all that stuff, which is up in Los Barriles, is Palma State Cortez. And it's a great, great place. I just preferred Punta Colorado, not only for the location, but for just being smaller, much more intimate, more family oriented, kind of much more old Baja feel. So I'm not a resort kind of guy, so I really preferred the older Baja feel of Punta Colorado, and that's why when Punta Colorado slowed down or shut down, that's why I went to Rancho Leonero rather than going up to Palmas, because again, Rancho Leonero had that really chill Baja vibe to it. Donald, thanks for joining us, man. Although you've commented already, I'm sorry. Hey, Jim. Gene, good to know. Yeah. So anyway, again, this episode was from our very first year with Jackson Kayak. We had Luther Cifers from Yakattack, who unfortunately had told me yesterday he could join us, and then texted me about 5 minutes ago and said his day got out of control, and unfortunately he can't join us here today. So kind of bummed about that. And my buddy Sean, who used to help me guide down in Baja, decided to go on a last minute kind of family getaway. So he bailed out on me. So, so I'm solo here today, but I guided down in this place for a really long time and I absolutely love it. And this is a good episode because we had pretty good Dorado fishing. I know Luther was like the king of the Dorado on this one. And we got a couple of Marlin, which, striped Marlin to me are the ultimate in, kayak fishing. They're so much stronger than sailfish and bigger, particularly if you're looking at these Atlantic sailfish, which are so small. The striped Marlin are so much bigger and stronger, but they're not as big and strong and mean as a blue Marlin or a black Marlin. So, you can land one of these fish, in an hour and a half to 2.5 hours, generally speaking, where the blue Marlin are just mean and don't give up and fight you for hours and hours. So love catching striped Marlin. Kurt Fan, how's it from South Africa? Kayak fishing is massive over there. Come fish with. I would love to, man. And you guys paddle the kind of boats that I like. Long, fast paddlers boats, going out through surf. I mean, the South African guys have got it going on, and you guys get some big old fish. So I would love to figure out a way to do that. Just going to shoot through some questions here, and then we'll get the episode rolling. But Donald, what type of retrieve do you prefer? I'm having trouble getting hits when chasing striped bass in 10 to 15 feet. Sorry. A little bit of a cough day. Donald, well, the thing is you can do a lot of different retrieves, and of course it depends on how you're rigging it, if you're doing it with a lead head, or if you're fishing it weedless, or if you're doing it in a donkey rig or anything like that. One thing I will tell you, the body floats. So it's going to stay up top pretty well, unless you really get some weight on it. But one of the really cool things with the weighted hook, it actually will sink this way. It doesn't go nose down, and it'll flutter like this. So it has a great action when it's sinking. The other thing is, I always say with the dart spin is really start off slow. That blade starts spinning at a very slow retrieve. So you can stay in that strike zone a really long time. And the blade is big enough, it's giving off a good vibration, even at a slow retrieve. So start off really, really slow. And then increase your speed. Sometimes the fish like to get excited by that bait coming through faster. It'll light them up and they'll attack. So vary that speed. Do a stop and go. With a lead head, it works really doing a stop and go retrieve. Crank it and then stop. And with a lead head, it's going to go nose down and that tail keeps going. So, vary it up. But I will say, start off and even do it like right next to your kayak or right next to your boat. Start off and see how slow you can retrieve that to get that tail initially spinning. And, I think you'll find that it works really, really well. Like I said, it's sometimes it's really easy to wind too fast. But with that said, it will swim just below the surface, and you can do it a little bit faster with your rod tip up, and it's actually works as a little bit of a wake bait. So, try the different things, but start off really slow. I think that might work for you. Hey, Serge, thanks for joining us from Ottawa. And Dave, been gone on vacations. Nice to see you back these days. Caught my PB Northern Pike on this trip. Oh, that's awesome. Is that the fish you're holding up in that picture right there? Looks like a good fish. I love catching pike. They are so much fun. So without further ado, like I said, this is season 5, episode 1. Our first year with Jackson Kayak, and this is at Rancho Leonero down in the East Cape of Baja.
This week on the Kayak Fishing Show, I'm in Baja, Mexico with my good friend Sean White and Luther Cifers from Yakattack. We're swinging for the fences, chasing big fish offshore, trolling for fun-fighting Dorado, and hoping a Marlin will come out to play. We'll be staying at the world-famous Rancho Leonero on the coast of the Sea of Cortez. Stick around. This is gonna be awesome.
Word to the wise, if your mama ain't taught you, don't stand in front of a man and a fish he ain't caught yet. Honey, if the world calls me, tell him I'm fishing. I'm going fishing. Where am I headed? Where am I headed? Where am I headed? Wouldn't you like to? Where am I headed? Where am I headed? Where am I headed? Wouldn't you like to? I'm going fishing.
Jackson Kayaks Kayak Fishing Show is brought to you by Jackson Kayak. One family, many waters. Ram, innovative mounting systems proudly made in the USA. Yakattack, create the ultimate fishing machine with Yakattack accessories. Ex Officio, made to adventure. Delorme, reach anyone, anywhere, anytime. And Hook One, everything you need to get out there and hook one. This week on Jackson Kayaks Kayak Fishing Show, Jim Sammons is heading to Baja, Mexico to fish the Sea of Cortez for hard-fighting striped marlin.
On this trip, we're fishing with Luther Cifers of Yakattack, and because we fish, Luther is an innovator. I mean, the guy's an engineer. He comes up with more cool gadgets and components and rigging for the kayaks than anybody I've ever met. I had a chance to fish with him in San Diego one day, got him on his first yellowtail, and we're hoping we can get him on his first marlin off a kayak. So,
my name is Sean White. I'm from Northern California. I live up in Mendocino County. Been kayak fishing about a dozen or so years. I'm pro staff for both Jackson Kayaks and Coquetat Water Sports. We're down at Rancho Leonero. I've been coming here now for the better part of 15 years. This particular trip, we came in October. October is pretty much prime time for billfish. We really wanted to target pretty much nothing but billfish. Traditional billfish angling means a big cruiser, a ton of baits out, trolling 7 to 10 miles an hour and just covering a huge amount of ground. And on a kayak, obviously, you can't do that. So what we do is we troll big live baits and slow troll them in a big wide presentation of sequential kayaks, which Jim refers to as the wall of death. And what's really nice is, you know, the bycatch that you get during bill fishing, generally Dorado, and there's nothing wrong with catching Dorado.
we're out here trolling a couple miles off the beach, and Luther hooked into a really nicer sized Dorado. I saw it jump a couple times. Just really good fish. It's got him on a ride. I got to paddle hard to catch up. Oh, it's a nice Dorado. Back of his head. So it was only a matter of time before it tore out, and I was just trying to get it up as quick as possible. Of course, it decided to go crazy right then. Oh well, catch and release. While we're down here at Rancho Leonero, we are targeting big game fish. And if you want to target big game fish, you need good quality gear. First off, the rod I'm using is a 6.5 foot heavy action with a softer tip. That's really important when you're on the big fish. You need good pulling power, but a softer tip so the fish doesn't beat you up. The reel I was using was a release reel LG. This is their large game reel.
Of course, that is Sigler reels
it's
now.
A fairly high gear ratio, but it also has incredible torque. I mean, you can really pull on big fish with it. On the reel, it is loaded with Seaguar 80-pound thread lock. The thread lock is their hollow core line, and I love this stuff because I can do loop-to-loop connections. So what I do is I get my Seaguar 80-pound fluorocarbon, which is the leader we're going to use. We're going to use 80 to 100-pound leader when we're going for marlin, and I can make these knotless connections. The hook I'm using is a Mustad Demon Perfect Circle, and I'm going to use a 10-aught. You want to go with the 2X strong. I have people show up down here with the really big wire hooks, and you just don't need that in a kayak. So go with the 2X strong. It's a little smaller wire, and you're going to be just fine. That's the gear I was using down here in the East Cape. Check it out. We've had a beautiful morning here in the East Cape. Luther got to fight a beautiful Dorado already. Stick around. Hopefully after this break, you'll see us on some marlin.
The Kayak Fishing Show is brought to you in part by Jackson Kayak. One family, many waters. Learn more at jacksonkayak.com.
So yeah, I don't go back and watch these things. I haven't watched this in a long time. I've forgotten on this one, we'd actually said, we are just going offshore. We didn't fish inshore much. It really was a mission to get marlin. And marlin fishing off the kayak generally means going out there and trolling. And it's a lot of trolling. So it's just paddle all day in the heat. I mean, it is warm down in southern Baja. And just troll those live baits. Now, unlike here in San Diego, you really can't catch live bait down there. Or it's very difficult. It's illegal basically for gringos to throw a cast net. So you have to buy your bait, and you can get a whole bait tank full of sardinas, which are about this big, for about $25. Better baits, caballito, mackerel, and mullet, which are great for roosterfish, and I've actually caught marlin on them as well, are like $2 a piece. So you go down there with the idea of, okay, I'm going to spend $2 a piece, which I always thought was kind of expensive until I went to a tournament in Florida, and they were charging like $10 a piece. And now here in San Diego, flying fish, they're charging like $35 to $50 for a flying fish. It's absolutely nuts. So $2 a bait isn't so bad. But on the Dorado, that first Dorado that Luther had caught, it was actually hooked like in the back of the head. The hook had come out of its mouth and it got snagged just below that kind of a dorsal fin. And he didn't have a gaff or anything, so he asked me to slide in and land it. Well, as I pulled up the line to go in and reach and gaff it, it spazzed out a little bit and just tore it out because it wasn't in very deep. So unfortunately, I lost Luther's fish. So let's keep her rolling.
Jackson Kayaks Kayak Fishing Show is brought to you in part by Yakattack. Turn your kayak into the ultimate fishing machine with Yakattack kayak fishing accessories. This week we're on the Sea of Cortez, fishing for marlin from Rancho Leonero.
Rancho Leonero is a small hotel fishing lodge located in the East Cape, about an hour from Cabo San Lucas. It's on a beautiful little point. It's got a beautiful reef right out in front. I've been coming here for many, many years, and basically consider the East Cape my home away from home. Come down here every year. It's just a beautiful spot, whether you're fishing or not fishing. But if you're fishing, the fishing is generally pretty good out there. It's just a wonderful place and great people. Most of the employees have been here forever. So you come back year in, year out, and you see the same people, and it does really feel like a home away from home.
With comfortable rooms, amazing food, and beautiful beach access to one of the world's top fisheries, it's easy to see why Rancho Leonero and the East Cape have been Jim's top choice of fishing destination for over a decade. After a relaxing night's sleep, the guys are ready to take to the water for day 2. After what only seems like a few seconds, Jim hooks his first Dorado of the trip.
Oh, just trolling our live baits. Luther got hit and his came unbuttoned, and a couple seconds later I got on. That's not a bad Dorado. It was not the jumpiest Dorado ever, that's for sure. A properly fitting PFD can mean the difference between life and death, and that's what we're going to talk about in this week's kayak fishing tip.
All right, Jim, so if I was going into a good paddle shop and wanted to pick out a good PFD, what's the very first thing I want to look for?
Well, the thing is you want to have one that's really comfortable, because if it's comfortable, you're going to wear it. And that to me is key, because people get them that are the wrong type of PFD, they're not comfortable, they don't wear it. So of course, having one that fits you properly. All PFDs are marked with sizes on the inside. So you want to make sure that you are getting the proper size for your body. And then adjusting it properly. I can't tell you how many people we see go in the water and the next thing you know, they're PFD.
Seen it 100 times. Okay, so this one's a large, extra large. That's definitely me. Let's put this on and show folks how to get it adjusted correctly.
First off, you want to clip it in and zip it up. And the thing that I always tell people when they put on their PFD is you want the PFD to move with you.
Yes.
You don't want to move inside of it.
No, and this one right now, definitely a wiggler, and if I went in the water, I wouldn't be able to breathe.
This is the Kayak Bahia. There are 3 straps on here. I usually go from the bottom up. And that's what you want. And again, when you're paddling all day, this is moving with you. It becomes part of your body, and you're not going to get all this rubbing. You want to make sure you're getting a paddling PFD. I mentioned that before. A lot of people, I see people with like water ski vests. Well, those things are made for rib protection and all other kinds of things because you're standing up, so they're very long. You're sitting in a kayak with something like that, it's very uncomfortable. So a paddling PFD, very short-waisted. So when you're sitting down, it's not pinching. The Kayak Bahia is thinner in the lower back, so it's not affecting your seated position. So it's not picking you forward, and it's much more comfortable in the sit-on-top kayaks. This one's got a nice radio pocket. We all carry VHF radio, so it's got that. It's got a couple other small pockets. They're also very open on the sides. So you have good movement. It's cut narrow here, so you have good movement here. And that's the thing, is having good freedom of movement with your arms. Kayak has a PFD that's going to fit anybody. You can check out all of their great PFDs at kayak.com. And that's your kayak fishing tip of the week.
Stay tuned. When we come back, the guys are up and at it early, and so are the Marlin. Jackson Kayaks Kayak Fishing Show is brought to you in part by Hook One. Everything you need to get out there and hook one.
Well, that was a great big Kayak advertisement, wasn't it? Got to do some stuff to pay the bills. There was a couple more questions here. Kurt talking about a website for the kayak fishing in South Africa. I will definitely check that out. Thanks, man. Gene Wilson asked, what year is this? This was actually 2013. So a little bit ago. And also asks, illegal to throw cast nets. Yeah. They, again, you're in a different country, so different rules. There's also what we like to call the bait mafia down in the East Cape. And there's kind of a hierarchy and an order in which you need to be buying your bait. You can't go to this guy because he's not in the right pecking order. You got to go to this guy first. If he's out of bait, then you can go to this guy, and so on and so forth. Like your bait, my Pongero, the guy who would run the boat for us, he couldn't throw a cast net either. Now, if he was just doing stuff for himself, yes, he could. But with guided clients, he could not throw a cast net and catch his own bait. He had to go over and we had to buy it. And the reason for this is if he started going out there and throwing a cast net for his clients in his boat, then when he needed bait and he hadn't found any, the other guys would not sell it to him. So you just have to stay in that, that whole pecking order and bow down to the bait mafia. But that was the whole reason for that. And I'm not sure why the whole cast nets aren't allowed by gringos, or if it was just where we were and they were just following the orders of the bait mafia. But it was kind of an interesting gig. And we just follow the rules, and you didn't mind because there was time we actually have a story. Is one time our support boat, because on my trips when I was doing these down there, we always had a support boat with us because you never knew if someone was going to hook a marlin and was going to get dragged off. So we wanted it for a safety deal for that, and also I had a guy get tagged by a Portuguese man of war, and he actually had an allergic reaction to it. So having the boat there, we were able to rush him into shore and get him taken care of. So it's just a whole different thing down there. But you had to love it. Yeah, Jane controlling the sails. But it kept, like I said, it kept things in order. So I started to say, actually, is one of the bait guys knew that we bought bait from him every day. And then our ponga broke down right where the bait ponga was, because they would basically be out at night catching bait, and then they'd have huge nets off the beach where they would keep all these baits. And we had bought bait from this bait ponga every day, and then the bait pump on our support boat broke. And so we were working on the bait pump, and so he just kept tossing baits out for our clients that were paddling around the area. So they were catching just big old jacks while we were working on the boat, because this guy was helping us out by chumming out baits and giving our clients bait. So like I said, it's one of those things that worked. They have the system dialed in down there for sure. Get this episode going again.
Jackson Kayaks Kayak Fishing Show is brought to you in part by DeLorme InReach. Follow Jim Sammons' Big Game Adventure live with DeLorme InReach at kayakfishingshow.com. Welcome back. This week, we're joining Jim Sammons and friends off the East Cape of Baja on the hunt for marlin and Dorado from their Jackson Kayaks. It's been a good couple of days so far with a few beautiful Dorado landed, but the marlin have eluded them. Hopefully, their luck will change today.
Oh, we've been working hard all day, paddling miles. Just getting fairly close to having to hang it up for the day. And Sean passed a milk jug. He goes, oh, there's some bait on this milk jug. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to turn around and watch him get hooked up on a Dorado. And all of a sudden, my line started smoking out, and it's a marlin. He was a little close to me, so I backed off my drag initially. That's why he was about jumping away from me again. I just didn't want him jumping that close to me, so I knew I had good tension. So I just kind of backed off just a little, and that's when he started greyhounding away from me. But now I've just got, he sounded. I'm just sitting here. But that can sometimes be a little scarier. You get these small ones and you can get them back next to you too fast. So that's why I wanted to back off and let him. Wow, I've already got him. I've got leader here. I can just see him down below me. We drifted apart though. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
We paddled the last 4 days. I ran tracks on my Raymarine fish finder all week. We paddled just shy of 40 miles in the last 4 days. Everybody's shoulders know we were bill fishing this week. It was a lot of work. But in the end of the day, we were really successful.
Got it. Yeah, baby! I want to get a release on this. Very small marlin, but man, what a way to kind of get something going after a long day of trying. Climbing on my hand and tail's kicking, so I'm gonna let him go. He's swimming away. That's why we come here. The boat I'm paddling here.
So it's actually mentioned on there. I mean, that was a small marlin, and small marlin and sailfish are actually quite a bit scarier sometimes than big ones, because the big marlin will just go greyhounding away from you, and you fight them a long way away from you. The small ones, a lot of times you'll get them too close to the boat too fast, and then you have this green fish with a 3-foot spear on the end of its face jumping around you, and that can be a little bit sketchy. I mentioned using a support boat down there. We always use the support boat, again, for safety in case something did go wrong. But that was another nice thing to have the support boat for, was for helping revive those billfish. You know, I could toss my bow line up to them, and I'd hold on to the bill of the fish, and they could tow us along and get a good revival on that fish. Oops, looking at the wrong screen. There we go.
This week is the Jackson Kayak Cuda 14, and the reason I selected it is because it is a nice all-around boat. It's very comfortable. It's solid in rough water conditions. It's a good paddler. So when we're doing a lot of trolling, you know, we're trolling for hours for billfish. It's nice to have a boat that paddles well, and I just like to have it all-around easy features. It's easy to rig up. Just an all-around great boat.
What we did on this thing, we kept it pretty simple. In the front here, we put the Zuka tube. This is a rod holder that you got some really good articulation with. It uses the Ram post and spline mount, so it's really rigid. Good for taking big hits on these fish. We mounted that to a 12-inch gear track. Again, we wanted to keep this pretty minimalist, so we just put the gear track on one side, left enough room there where we could slide it all the way forward, keep it out of the paddle stroke for when we were paddling to the wind and having to take some pretty aggressive strokes. And in the forward part of the deck, that's really all we did. The rest of the gear management was handled either by the stock rigging on the Cuda 14. It already comes with these Ram tube rod holders, which are also really great for trolling. And then the black pack. You know, put that in the back tank well, and not only does it become a storage container, but it also becomes a mounting platform. So you can see we've got our Busy Carbon Pro attached to it, make sure we're visible in those swells. We've got the panfish with the Vio camera on it, so Jim can get those great underwater shots. And that's really it. This thing was ready to go. We fished it for 3 days now. The setup has worked great, and we got 1 day left, and hopefully we'll get to test it out again with some big fish.
Stay tuned. When we come back, the guys buckle in for one last day on the water, and the hunt for marlin continues.
I'm getting gloved up to go help my friend Sean land his first billfish.
It's actually funny looking at that Cuda, how far things have come. You know, Yakattack's equipment certainly has come. They don't incorporate anything with Ram anymore. The seats on the boats are so much better now than they were when they first started. You know, there's more lumbar
Jackson
support.
Kayaks
Just
Kayak Fishing
you know,
Show is brought
it's
to
it's
you
it's
by
cool to see over the
Ram
years how
Kayak
everything just
Mounts,
keeps getting
featuring
better.
a complete line of kayak mounts that
You know, we don't
reveal
work with
a world
Ram
of
anymore.
possibilities. It's been incredible fishing already at Rancho Leonero on the East Cape of Baja. Jim Sammons hooked and landed a striped marlin within the first couple of days, but the adventure is far from over. The guys have geared up and are ready to see what the Sea of Cortez has to offer today.
We're down here in the East Cape, Rancho Leonero, and I'm here with Luther Cifers from Yakattack. Luther got to join us on our trip down here to do some big game kayak fishing. Luther, first of all, can't thank you enough for all your support, for coming down here to fish with us. I mean, it's just been a great time.
Jim, I can't thank you guys enough for the invite. I mean, coming to a place like this has been a dream of mine for a long time, and to get down here and do it with some great people and some great friends could have been better.
You got some good Dorado.
Yeah. I mean, that was great. And again, you know, the acrobatic nature of those fish. You know, I've caught them out of a boat, but I've never caught them in a kayak. So that was, it was just that much funner, you know, and as kayak fishing always is. So yeah, it was really cool, man.
I'm so excited. If I hadn't just gone to the bathroom, I would have. There was a marlin greyhounding way up on the horizon, and Luther took off after it. Me and Jim were just joking, like, we're just gonna sit here and wait for it. And it wasn't like 30 seconds later, man, my clicker lit up and put it in gear, and sure thing, man, jumping marlin. So exciting. It's really, really exciting.
Basically the same thing as yesterday. Been trolling our butts off all day, getting to it towards the end of the day, thinking, oh, maybe it's time to wrap it up. We saw a free jumping marlin. It was actually funny because we saw a free jumping marlin. Luther goes taking off after it. A couple minutes later, Sean is on.
I mean, before I really even had a load on it, I heard you and Alonso both screaming, Marlin! You know,
It's so exciting. I mean, I saw that thing's head out of the water, just going, and then it went bonkers.
yeah.
I mean, it put on a very good show. That thing went greyhounding, tail walking.
Yeah.
That was an exciting fish.
It was an exciting fish, exciting moment for me. And I mean, it is pretty cool. At some point, you know, your kayak flips right around and you see this giant cruise missile greyhounding off on the horizon. And at some point you realize that it's attached to me. My bait got picked up. It didn't really take off like they normally do with the marlin. It was sort of clicking away. And then all of a sudden, boy, it went crazy. I put it in gear. And before I even knew what was going on, I heard Jim and Alonzo both screaming, Marlin, Marlin, Marlin. And then my kayak did the super duper compass needle U-turn, and off I was going to the horizon. There's really kind of nothing like it. You know what I mean?
I'm getting gloved up to go help my friend Sean land his first billfish. Got it.
There's really kind of nothing like it. You know what I mean? It is the ultimate kayak sleigh ride. Yeah, mine was not huge. Mine was about 110 pounds, which is still plenty big. And man, it's just insane how powerful those fish are.
Okay, watch that bill right by his side. Okay, we're gonna put this guy back in the water. His tail starts to kick. Because I tell you, nothing better than catching them, except for letting them go alive. Ow! And let me tell you, they can clamp down hard. They don't have teeth, but they clamp down. His tail's kicking, and he's off. Bam! Oh man.
My name is Sean White. I am a longtime kayak fisherman, pro staff for Jackson Kayaks, and my favorite piece of gear during this trip to Baja was the Werner Kamano hook. You know, when you come on these long trips, you can't bring everything with you, but there's certain things that it's really hard to use satisfactory out of the old rental fleet, and your paddle is one of those things. This paddle has all the classic attributes that you'd have in a high-end Werner paddle, but what makes this one such a joy is two different things. One, this is a very long paddle. It's a 250 centimeter paddle. We were down here using Jacksons, which have a higher seat, and you really need that extra 10 centimeters of reach to get your angles just right. Couple that with an infinitely adjustable ferrule, nice splines. Everything is snug as a bug. There's no jingle in it at all. It's a great, great setup.
I don't often kill fish. I don't always bring fish home from our trips. But if you're catching tasty fish like Dorado, it's nice to bring some fresh fish home. That's why I always bring along my Angle cooler. It keeps that stuff nice and ice cold until I get home. I'm going to jump up here in the freezer, grab my fillets of Dorado and my Angle new ice packs, and that's going to keep it ice cold until I get home. Drop that in the cooler, put my Angle new ice packs on top of it. It's time to go home. I got to jump on an airplane. See you in Puerto Rico.
With the second big Marlin released healthy to fight another day, the guys head in for one last celebration at Rancho Leonero. Time to pack up and get ready for the next extreme kayak fishing challenge.
So this was my chance to fish for billfish, but me and Jim come down here usually at least once a year and do it with customers as well. You can book arrangements for doing this trip through East Cape Kayak Fishing, and I'm generally Jim's assistant on these trips.
Official member of the Kayak Fishing Billfish Club.
Right.
Not a lot of people.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
Cheers. Glad to share the moment with you guys.
Yeah, we used to get one of the Marlin flags and give them to everybody who caught a Marlin on one of our trips. It's always a lot of fun. Stop that. Close that out there. So, yeah, we always had what is this thing doing? Sorry, my computer's acting up a little bit there. I know there was another question here. Abraham from El Salvador. Thanks for watching, man. He'd like to know why he hasn't seen me on a pedal kayak. Well, I love to paddle. I mean, I was paddling kayaks way, way, way before pedal kayaks came out. So I'm a paddler. I know how to paddle. And I enjoy that. I like the simplicity of paddling, not having a mechanism, anything like that. The other reason is until the Blue Sky came out, the Blue Sky Boat Works, I had never found a pedal boat that I could actually pedal without it hurting my back. I've got a really bad back, and the ergonomics of pedaling, the seated position, you're so low, just never worked for my back. So with the Blue Sky, you're seated up much higher. Now, generally, they're not like an offshore boat like this. They're totally different. But it just wasn't comfortable for me. You know, like I said, the Blue Sky, you're seated up higher. It's more of a natural position, so I could pedal one of those. But, you know, I keep trying. The pedal systems I know with Jackson Kayak have gotten a lot better, and they are nice. And I'm really looking forward to some stuff they've got coming up to giving that a try. And I'll always keep trying, but I do love paddling. And I like the simplicity of it. So, you know, different strokes. Thanks, Gene. I appreciate it. Yeah, you know, like I said, I miss those days of guiding those trips. Back in the day, I used to do like 5 trips down there a year with back-to-back groups. And it was really, the East Cape was really the first destination, kayak fishing destination, where people would travel to go with the potential of getting these big fish. I mean, this is where some of the first Marlin I mean, I've dealt with so many marlin. I had so many clients catch marlin down there. And the first place where you really had chances at big roosterfish, you know, again, I mean, I love Panama and all that and what they're doing, but like getting to Los Buzos, I love Los Buzos. I mean, and I would go there all the time, but it's a lot more of a mission to get there, you know, much longer flights and then, you know, a 6-hour drive. So there's a lot more going on there. So like I said, with the East Cape, Southern Baja from Southern California anyway, within 3 hours basically of leaving the airport here, I'm sitting on the beach there or sitting poolside having my first margarita. And believe me, the margaritas down there are deadly, deadly good. So, you know, like I said, we ran 5 trips a year, and then there was kind of quite some time back, there was, you know, kind of an economy issue. And then there was some violence in Baja people were worried about, which really wasn't happening down where we were down the East Cape. It was all more near the borders. And then what was it? It was like the swine flu or something. And all of a sudden, just tourism into Baja just stopped. So I went from doing 5 trips a year to doing 1. And then it just became like, well, financially, it really wasn't worthwhile. So I continued to do it a little bit into doing this show. But then I got so busy with travel with the show, for that 1 trip I was able to do down there, it just became not worth it. I mean, I'd love to pick it back up again. But of course, that would involve a whole new investment of getting a whole new fleet of kayaks down there. Rancho Leonero does have a bunch of kayaks. I know they've got Hobies. They've got a few Jacksons. They probably still have a bunch of old ocean kayaks from when we were first guiding down there. Punta Colorada, I'm sure, you know, a lot of kayaks got moved up to Palmas de Cortez. So, I mean, there still is great kayak fishing. And I mean, you can see where we're paddling right here in this photo. In front of Rancho Leonero is just an insanely beautiful reef. So you go out there, go snorkeling, go casting from the beach, you know, early morning, you'll just see bait busting, jacks, roosters ripping through there. You know, it's pretty amazing. And like I said, it's super affordable destination to go to. Abraham, what do you think of low profile reel on kayaking like the Tranx 500 or Daiwa Lexa 400? I love them. You know, it depends on what you're using them for. But for like throwing poppers, throwing plastics, you know, they're great. I mean, for the bigger fish, for like marlin and stuff like that, or for tuna, I really prefer a round reel, a lever drag reel, particularly if you're out there trolling live baits and all that. But for throwing, another one is a good one is the Akuma Komodo. I had pretty good luck with that on some pretty good size fish. Landed quite a few tarpon on them. You know, so I'm a big fan of low profile reels. I'm a big fan of conventional reels. I rarely, if ever, use spinning gear. I don't like spinning gear. I was actually in Costa Rica, and I had a Akuma popping rod with I think I had a Shimano. They had a Shimano spinning reel on it because everybody's like, oh, you got to use spinning gear for throwing the poppers. And I know spinning gear is a little bit better for poppers. So I brought this rod and reel combination with me down to Costa Rica, and I threw it probably 5 times. And then I gave it to the guide. I'm like, I can't stand this thing. I hate it. So it was so heavy and just so awkward. And I just don't like, personally, I don't like spinning gear. So I would rather throw a big low profile for poppers than throw a spinner. In my, you know, how it works for me. But anyway, as always, again, our show is brought to you by Seaguard, Jackson Kayak, Werner Paddles, Standard Horizon, Yakattack, Siegler Reels, a band of anglers, Ray Marine, and Kokatat, and of course, Ballast Point Brewing Company. which again, I didn't have my beer today, but maybe I should have had a beer. I mean, maybe that's why my voice wasn't working for me today, because I didn't have a beer. And again, once again, here's that discount code for ACR Artex for the personal locator beacon or anything else on their website. It is good for anything on their website. So if that appeals to you, we will be back here this Thursday with one of our older episodes, one of the ocean kayak years, and I don't even have it in front of me, so I don't even remember which one it is. But we just keep doing this every Tuesday and Thursday as long as I'm not going out fishing. So I hope you can join us, and please tell your friends, please share it, because that's what helps us get this out there to more people. If you are going out on the water, please remember to always wear your PFD and keep your paddle right side up. Y'all take care.